Hey guys, this is Garrett McLaughlin and welcome back to the Ignite Your Run series. Today I want to take a look at the hips, but specifically looking at improving lower leg alignment. And a lot of times from the hips, I find a lot of people that think they're weak in the hips. As I test everything throughout the hip, they're pretty strong in most movements, but when it comes to extension or hip abduction out to the side, I can overcome them out of that position pretty easily. Even though that looks like weakness, I think that we're kind of missing the true underlying reason. A lot of times it's not weakness specifically, but it's more inhibition. Our nervous system, the connection between our nervous system and soft tissue, we really don't have that active signal between those two. So a lot of times it's not reacting and responding to the pressure, to the stress as we try to break them out of that position. So a lot of times you'll see these people, if you're running in half marathon, full marathon, every time they step and hit the ground, you see that kind of that knee collapse in. Even though it does seem like the hip is weak, it's kind of a, if you look at it from more of a reactiveness standpoint, every time that foot hits the ground, the hip, the muscle, the stabilizers here, the glutes, piriformis, external rotators have to fire just slightly before that stance phase to control and prevent any kind of valgus collapse, that drop in of the knee as they go into that stance phase. So looking at that, what we can do is not just your clamshells, which a lot of people throw out that saying the hip is weak, let's do clamshells, and hopefully once I stand upright and run again, that problem will fix and resolve itself. What we need to do is actually restore that connection. So if you think of the body not just in terms of individual muscles, but more as an interconnected unit, which is interconnected fascially, pretty much from all the way through spiral line, the back line, front line, a lot of different lines throughout the body that connect different areas, which most people think are completely different and separated. But what we can do here, if we're thinking, if I have that problem, I have that collapse through my left knee, what I want to do is get this hip activated, but I actually can do that, activate the left hip, by utilizing and adding some tension through the right shoulder. So just to demonstrate here, what I like to do, I'll show you in this box, but you can do this in the doorway, a piece of exercise equipment. You can do this underneath the kitchen table on one of the legs of the table. So what you're going to do is apply pressure. Here, my elbow is straight out in front of my shoulder. My palm is kind of pushing into this. Obviously with the doorway, I push my whole hand into it. My knees are bent. So as I'm applying pressure downward, so just to demonstrate, I'm pushing that way into the box. As I'm doing that, my left hip, I'm going to abduct and extend. So I'm trying to think, using these muscles of the glute, abduct, extend, as I keep constant pressure through that right arm. So what I'm doing, I'm contracting and activating that spiral fascial line in two different areas. I'm activating the shoulder and then also going through a range of motion of the hip to help improve that connectedness and that signal from the nervous system to the hip. So a lot of times after I retest someone that is tested weak through the hip, if I go ahead and do this movement and then test them again, if that is true inhibition, that usually resolves or gets much better just by running through about 10 to 20 reps of that. So once you finish that, what we can do, we want to put that into an actual movement pattern. So again, one big problem I have is people always doing these laying on the ground exercises. So right there, yes, that's more of an activation, but I'm not trying to strengthen anything but improve the connection. People do the clamshells here, doing fire hydrants, which are good from a weakness standpoint, but not from a neurological or stability standpoint. So go ahead and putting that newly gained stability or connective activation, whatever you want to call it, through the range of motion into a movement pattern is really what we need to do to help improve the movement itself. So what I like, because it's very specific to running, is going into the split squat. So again, making sure as I drop down, again, we want to align here, but as I activate that hip, it should almost align pretty well on its own. Nice control as I lower down, driving up through that front leg. So going through about 10-20 reps on that per side. What I can also do is what's called loaded single leg stance. So if I'm in just kind of this low running position, I'm actually truly on one leg on this one. So sitting on one leg, I'm reaching my right leg backwards. I'm in a running stance here. Again, in that position, you can really feel the hip engaging. So we're really turning on these muscles, these stabilizers from the hip. At all times, you want to watch where that knee is pointing. If you notice you're in that position and that knee is really trailing in, then we're not really getting the stability from the hip that we want. So in that position, make sure the knee is pointing straight ahead, gauging the hip, engaging the quad, getting in a nice low position, get as low as you feel comfortable without losing that alignment, and then holding right there. So what I encourage you to do is not always think from a strength perspective, We need to look at the nervous system, the brain. Are these muscles firing the way we want them to? Are they activated, and are we getting that strong contraction that we should be getting? A lot of times people are strong, it's just that they are inhibited. So there we go, there's a basic look at the hip as far as a stability and a neurological perspective. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a great day.